This was my first time playing on European servers for the solo cash cup, and yes, I had well over 100 ping for the entire thing. If you're expecting some 20 bomb tutorial, that's not what this is, but I do get a couple solid frags and good placement on this ping, so I want to show you that in an authentic way. My native server is NAC, but I couldn't make the start time for my region, so I queued into EU earlier in the day and got to work. So in game 1, I had no idea what to expect, so I played like Peterbot when he sees a girl. Freezing up, that is. This guy's farming up his brick and doesn't see me, so I'm frozen, and the strat is to treat him like a dinosaur. Most people are droned out when they're farming, so unless they see movement or visual sound effects / footsteps, they are not paying attention. And that's exactly what happens. He keeps farming up and then moves on with his life like nothing happened. And I usually don't play like this much of a rat, but on this ping, I want to give you a realistic point of view of what a tournament could look like and not just show you my best highlights like I'm a god on any ping. So that's why I'm not cutting out moments like this. Because for those on bad ping that are watching, I want you to learn from this. Don't let social media and YouTube highlights influence you too much, because that's what these tournament breakdowns are for. Staying on course with that theme, I hopped in a bush. After seeing that guy close to my drop spot and knowing there were other people that landed in reckless, I was afraid of taking an early game fight and throwing my game. That's why I'm just farming on the outskirts. I don't want to make a huge ruckus going for metal inside the POI, so I'm staying towards the exterior. It's not glamorous advice or a fun play style, but when you're on 100+ ping, heck, I'd even say 60+ ping, you need to be playing super safe. So bush camp. And sometimes you won't even need to farm. Luckily this game there is a fight right next to me for the forecast tower, and it extended for a long time. I started hearing shields cracking, shots, fall damage, etc., and then one of them died. Their surviving fella got his loot and walked right up next to my bush, and I almost convinced myself to go for a third-party play, but I probably would have just died, so I stayed put. Then once he left, I went up to the loot pile and got a free 90 flowberry fizz and 300 metal. So really, I didn't even need to farm up a lot of metal in the first place. I got more than I'd use this game right here just from his body. And I know, obviously this isn't a consistent strategy, but when you're on high ping, you need to consider scavenging for loot and being a crime scene cleanup specialist rather than being the warrior yourself. Moving on into endgame, I used that flowberry fizz for a clean rotation into zone, then camp behind a tree, and not only that, but I got almost the perfect zone pull. Now, on high ping, I like hiding behind natural cover, but since I did have the perfect zone pull, I built up to have a base and clear vision over the lobby. But then of course an actual EU player pushed right up to me, and I wasn't sure if he was building up himself or actively contesting me at first, so I didn't start shooting until it was too late. I thought if I made some space he'd probably back off, but I was very wrong and I did not make enough space. He breaks through my wall and kills me, and I note that for next game. When you're on high ping, you need to make way more space than you could ever think. You're not going to be able to hold a single wall, so you need to make like 10 boxes where otherwise you'd usually be making like 2 or 3. Here's an example where I'm in creative just so I can show you. I'm still on EU servers for this, and I make 10 boxes here. The enemy is pushing in, breaking from behind, but I'm able to get some counter damage and kill him from this situation because I made a lot of space. I didn't do that in game 1 in the cash cup, but after that I learned and did it in the rest of the games. The next game progressed somewhat similarly, but I wasn't able to get a fancy refresh just at my feet. This time I actually had to go out and farm my own metal. So when I'm going, I'm in the middle of reckless railways, in the middle of this urban spot, and I'm being super cautious. There's still about 50 players up, and there could be someone around any corner, and I'm not really confident in my build fight ability on this ping. So if everyone's awareness level in this game is 100%, yours needs to be 200% when farming or doing anything else. I am able to get farmed up, and now I wait in this house for zone. A little trick I picked up while playing zero builds is rotating when you're in storm is actually a really good idea. And the reason to do this for both of these game modes is no one's really looking in storm while you're rotating. Of course, there is the occasional person that will storm camp if they're already established in zone, but as you can see in this situation, there are footsteps and people running past me rotating themselves. So those people are trying to get into safe zone, not look back. And I compare this a little bit to zero build, because in zero build when you're rotating, you can't protect yourself or fight very much. And when you're on an absurd amount of ping, you're also in the same boat. Yes, you can throw up a few walls, but if someone actually pushes you, you might be screwed. I did make it into zone and based up under this bridge, but speak of the devil, someone did push me. He pops a nitro and is running at me. Now I know on this ping, I'm not going to be able to hold a wall, replace it, or even get a stare down if he runs through, so I pretty much have one one chance to make the first move. One thing to look for on any ping, whether it's 0 or 100, is to watch through your walls to see what the enemy is doing. If he has his blueprint out, you might be able to make a safe edit. If he has his gun out, you need to be careful, but when he's tack sprinting like this, he has no gun out and is guaranteed to have a small animation whenever you do decide to make a move on him. In this instance, I'm not only able to edit and land a shot on him, but the animation actually gives me enough time to reset my wall and block his shot / nitro ram. And again, don't rely on being able to reset that wall or hold it, but in situations like this, you need to be looking for every advantage you can get. For example, on high ping, you need to be abusing actions that are client side. Client actions are actions that don't need to ping the server because they happen directly on your computer / console. And movement is a weird hybrid between client and server actions because the server obviously needs to know where you are, but if it was completely server side, every player would look so laggy. So most of the movement calculations and predictions are done on your system. That means you need to abuse movement as much as possible. I'll talk about it more later, but you'll notice me move side to side and jump, just trying everything I can to even the playing field. You want to force these close quarter situations a lot too. Since editing and building is a server side operation, on high ping you are at a heavy disadvantage here. But in a close box fight, odds are almost even since you take the building and editing aspect out of the equation. That's why in high ping, you need to stack 50-50s in every fight you get into, because sadly, those are your best odds. Like, if you engage in a full build fight, your odds are dropping from 50 down to 20 or 10. But 50 is half the time, so that's still pretty high. Especially if you combine this with playing safe, you can get pretty far. Obviously, the more engagements you get into, the more chances you are going to die, but that first fight, you have pretty good odds. The way I think of it is if I can play safe for most of the game, then the only fight I have to take is if someone is pushing me balls to the wall. Because otherwise, I'll just make 10 boxes and run away so I'll be safe, and the only time I'm in real danger is if the enemy forces a 50-50 into my base. And at that point, I have equal odds if I don't take prior damage. So 50-50s are your best scenario and really the only chance you're gonna die unless you burn all your mats before endgame. So in mid to late game, you do need to be making a ton of boxes and waiting for those 50-50s, but early game, when you have no mats, what are you supposed to do? Usually if I was on NAC and on my regular ping, I would try to get a gun, a couple mats so I could have a building advantage, maybe do a small build fight early game, but in this situation, I cannot do that. I have to get my first gun and chase down whoever is at the PY before they can get a gun, or at least mats where they would then have the advantage. I swap out my pump for a gatekeeper shotgun because this has been doing me good all tournament. Remember that first game when someone 50-50'd into my box and I died? That was because I was using the pump. But then the time where I got the kill was when I was able to land all 3 of my gatekeeper shots, so I want to switch to this. I saw footsteps on my screen, and remembering my first game, I did not want to assume instead of going for height myself, so this time I build up. I got slammed in a couple of games before this, so my lobby elo is pretty low, and this guy, you can tell, is not the best. But even though I know he's not that good, I am keeping my distance. When the high ping specialty is making a bunch of boxes and retreating into those boxes, you do not want to get too close and boxed yourself. You'll know I never fully push at him unless I know he's about to be one shot. And the only reason I fully push him is because he has that shield bubble and I don't want to let him heal or escape. Like I said, this was my first tournament ever experiencing a ping this high, and I got a few frags. Invest if you want to see me queue into another tourney on 100+ ping, and hopefully next time I can get a few more and do a bit better. But it was just the first trial run since I couldn't make the NA queue. If you want more tournament tips and tricks, this is how to stop wasting matches in tournaments, and if you've been playing Fortnite Reloaded, this is how to properly play as a solo in that, because you can only queue as a squad. Drop a like if you've enjoyed, invest into the channel, and use code reidtheninja or another small creators code to help us out. On that note, I am signing off.